Hi guys, we should now be live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and the Facebook group, which is Mindset Dad. Hope you're having a good week. The focus of the live today is around communication and conflict in your relationship. And the reason I'm covering it today is because I see this so much in the sessions that I run around relationship coaching, and it's couples speaking to each other in a way that just isn't constructive. It's creating a lot of conflict. They find themselves repeating the same patterns over and over again, and it's incredibly frustrating. So there's a lot of deep work that I do in my sessions around judgment and patterns of behavior and connection. But I want to share with you a communication hack or theory which is guaranteed to improve your relationship. So as a parent, dad of two young children myself, aged 4 and 7, I want to protect them above anything else, and I want them to be happy and free to make their own choices and decisions. But whilst they're still so young, of course, it's I often know what's best for them. So, I'll try and explain myself clearly to keep them safe, but I'm not always going to get bogged down in detail. If it's not in the best interest to open up a big conversation about the safety of running out into the road, I just want them to stop. So instead, I'll instruct them to do things. So, get in the car, please. Say thank you and please, and be careful. Although I'm working on that one, I try to switch the language. But my children obviously talk to me back like kids do. Their responses are instinctive and reactive, and they're just beginning to make sense of the world around them. They don't yet have that perspective. So, of course, they rarely follow instruction first time around. They snap back at me from time to time, and they recognize the simple things that evoke, certain emotions. So, I feel safe when you sit on the landing, Daddy. That film's just too scary for me, or I love chocolate. So, as an adult, I have the capacity to perceive and understand situations that are different from what I observed when I was a child. And I now use a blend of instinctive feelings and responses mixed with those higher cognitive functioning parts of my adult brain to give me perspective. I tap into my previous experiences and reference points to communicate in a concise and constructive way. Of course, I don't always get it right. Sometimes my instinctive brain will react too quickly and comes up with a defensive or snappy remark. And effectively, what's happening there is I'm misinterpreting the signals. I'm actually being spoken to as an adult, but I've wrongly assumed that I was being spoken to as a child. So, typical examples that I hear from so many couples is things like the washing needs doing, and the other person saying, "You're always having a go at me." Now, if you give yourself time to respond, you'll often come up with your more considered response, the adult response to that comment. And in this example, they were only commenting on the fact that the washing needs doing. It was a fact. They actually didn't really accuse you of anything. So what's going on here? Well, this is one of the most accessible and modern psychological theories. It's called transactional analysis. And a transaction is an interaction with another person. So it suggests that you take on the role of either parent, adult, or child when interacting with other people. So an effective transaction and successful communication occurs when in a complementary mode. So, for example, when you're speaking to a young child as a parent, then that's fine. Or if you're speaking to an adult as an adult, but speaking as a parent to your child when they're young is obviously perfectly reasonable. However, if you speak to your partner as a child, how do you think they're going to react? It's likely that they're going to get defensive. They're going to slip back into that child mode. So this will draw on their feelings, thoughts, and emotions from their own childhood, and it will be picking up on deep-rooted beliefs from those early years. So maybe they'll say something quite childish back, like, "You never do your fair share." So the more this pattern repeats itself, the more you will refer to your feelings, thoughts, and emotions copied from your own parents or other parental figures when you're having this parent child interaction. So, I mean, how often do you say something that your parents would have said, for example? I mean, one of the ones is, "Well, you just do as you're told," that you say to your kids. You think that's not what you want to be saying, but it seems to come up. So, of course, it's not only what you say, but it's also the facial expressions, the gestures, the body language, and tone as well. So it's deemed really that these are more important than what's actually being said. And if you break it down according to this transactional analysis, they say that it's only 10% of meaning is actually in the spoken word, 30% of meaning is in the pitch, inflection, or the volume, and then 60% of the meaning of what's actually being said is displayed through facial expressions. So it's well worth keeping that in mind, and when you're interacting with your partner. And it's also interesting to think of it in terms of the parent is our taught concepts of life, the adult is our thought concept of life, and the child is our felt concept of life. So, do you speak to your partner as a parent, an adult, or a child most frequently, particularly when you think of those areas of conflict that may arise within your relationship? Because obviously, in the ideal scenario, we'll approach all communications as an adult, and this way, your partner will most likely respond as an adult, and you'll have much smoother interactions and find resolutions. You'll definitely reduce the conflict. So, how will knowing this help? Well, if we can quieten our inner child in us, we'll be more likely to respond as an adult. And awareness is the first step towards this. But it will take practice, over quite a long period of time to master it. And many of the strategies I cover during my sessions, including practical ways we can manage those emotions on a daily basis. So even the practice of these strategies over 4 to 6 weeks, for example, can have life-changing results. And I've seen it myself in our sessions. So have you noticed, yeah, specific things that you're saying to your partner, or specific things they say to you that triggers the child in you? Because if you have, just talk to them about it, explain how they make you feel, explain this theory to them as well, so they've got an understanding, and just figure out how those comments can be phrased differently to reduce any defensive responses. So I think that's a really good starting point. Also, look on the bright side. We can always start seeing the best in our partner. And if we assume that they are trying to adopt the adult stance and they're just stating something that would be factual or with perspective, then we should always try and stay in our adult state as well in response. So the adult attitude, really, when you look at it, is everyone's entitled to their opinion, and people decide on their own destiny, and these decisions can be changed at any time. So it's having that perspective on it from an adult point of view. And you definitely won't be able to resolve the conflict if you're trying to continue to communicate whilst one person is in child mode and the other is in parent or adult. It's just not going to work. So instead, take time to return to the discussion when you're both in adult mode, and you'll find the resolution will come so much quicker. So how will you know which mode you're in? Well, check yourself with these characteristics and just see which ones you're displaying the most, because the parent characteristics really is a state of anger, impatience. You may be finger pointing or gesturing, getting frustrated. You might use patronizing language or be judgmental or critical. So that's more parental. The child characteristics are maybe you've got a bit of a whining voice, rolling eyes, temper tantrums. You might slip into teasing or mumbling, and the sort of "I don't know" or "I don't care" comments. The adult characteristics: you're attentive, you're interested, you're straightforward, non-threatening, inquisitive, asking more questions, the open questions as well to find out as much information as you can before you respond. So it's much more reasoned approach, a more balanced opinion. So I hope this knowledge gives you both insight and understanding of how to manage your inner child a little bit better, also manage your concepts of the parent and adult perspective as well, just so you can better communicate with your partner and manage conflict yourself. I love helping couples in this way work through the challenges and issues together. It's very satisfying to see them leave my process in a much stronger position than they were when they came in, playing for the same team and working together to find resolutions. So, if you would like help with your communication in the relationship, or you feel you need some guidance or support from my coaching sessions in general, then just drop me a message and I'd be happy to open up a conversation. So, yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to catch up with you soon. Cheers.